It's a great way to meet people as well. Like sometimes I talk to someone for, oh, so now I hear my feedback, as in I hear what I say. I think now it's fine. Yeah, now it's fine. No, no. Hello. I think that is, yes, that is how you say it, because we do video, so I guess Vibbio kind of is the way to go. So I mean, Fabio, I started so many things in my life that like it's, but yeah, for the purpose of being concise, I did in university. I studied foreign languages. So I did a BA in English language and in Chinese language, and let me just and as part of that, spent 5 years in China, learning Chinese and then teaching Chinese and then teaching English to Chinese people. And I did that for a while. And then I also worked in a startup where I was kind of like the second person in the startup, which just means that you do everything and you have to learn lots of things. And that's where I got my first taste for maybe like editing websites and doing a bit of like CSS, HTML, WordPressy stuff. And I think when I turned 30, I got this whole like, oh, but I should actually be doing something I enjoy, and life is too short to be doing stuff that you don't like. And at that point, I quit my job in the startup, and I started to self-teach myself, the usual stuff. So I started with Python because everyone said Python is a good language to start with, and then I found Free Code Camp, which was like a better, more structured way for me to, like, because in Free Code Camp, it's not just like, oh, you need to learn everything. Instead, they say, hey, in 300 hours, you could learn responsive web design, and that sounded just more tangible. So I started doing that a lot, and at the same time, I also started organizing meetups, and that was for people like myself. So I wanted to find people that would validate that what I was doing was not a terrible idea, because I wanted to see that that I was not too late in the game. That even though I don't have a tech background, I can still do it, and even though I'm 30, I can still do it. So I found a lot of like a big, very supportive community of people, so learners, but also mentors. So tech professionals that would teach me stuff, or like, because I would just have a bazillion questions, about everything. Yeah, so that's kind of how it went. And I think coming from a language background, of course, it helped me in a way, because I had like how every language has a syntax, and every computer language has syntax as well. So I was able to abstract that quite quickly. But otherwise, like, I was a complete noob. So it was like just very, very difficult. But yeah, it was fun. I can hear you. Oh, right. Someone is saying that they can't hear you. So I do get the feedback from what I say. Oh, can you still hear me, Fabio? uh, oh, good.
Oh, wait. Yeah. Um, weird. Okay. So, uh, sorry about that. I haven't realized that you couldn't hear me. And the reason was there was just some bad contact with my microphone. So, yeah, everything is back to normal, I guess. Can you hear me though?
Yeah, I can hear you. It's just everything you say is duplicated.
Okay, just wait a second. Now I can't hear you. Okay, now I can hear you. I mean, it was bound to have some sort of issue eventually. Sorry about that, Eva. What I was saying was that's really interesting what you said about the learning that language background helped you a lot with picking up languages. And like we mentioned with Gemma on the first episode, is that if you know one language well, you can take that and use that to help you get started. So it makes a lot of sense that even though your knowledge was a speaking language, not a coding language, but you still have the same syntaxes and the same sort of things that you can still use when you are learning how to code. And I have to say, I love free code camp. I believe that if someone wants to get started on the same career to become a developer, that's probably the best place to get started, because like you said, you have all these modules. Each one of them is 300 hours, so you can spend more time or less time, whatever you prefer. And it's just so much better to get started from there than to just sit down and say, okay, how the hell do I get started? So you also said that what kind of pushed you to learn how to become a developer was the experience on a startup, but also that sort of insight or some push or something that you said, I need to do something that I really enjoy, not just do this. Was that a particular moment or something that woke you up because you close contact with someone as a developer? That's why you wanted to maybe learn a bit more. Oh. Okay, now there's an issue. Sorry.
Oh,
With the
no,
sounds.
I'll be quiet. Is it
Now
yeah?
now it's going. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Okay. No, okay, cool. Okay, so going
Yeah.
back to if there was a specific moment that kind of changed stuff for me, it was yeah, just the fact that my partner was working, and also she made a move to for herself, so that kind of gave me an idea, but also it was obviously it's easier if your partner has a job, so because knowing that, so I estimated that it's going to take me around a year to become profitable in a sense, so to be able to contribute to be paid for what I do. And obviously knowing that your partner can support you is already a lot, right? Like not everyone can do that, and for me that was very, very important. So that was the first thing. The second one, as I said, is that I started thinking more like, oh, I can choose what I want to do, and I can learn a lot of things. So therefore, there's like more jobs and more opportunities that maybe um, like that maybe there's things that I would like and I don't know about. So I also, when I started, I didn't know that this was going to be, you know, like my career, because you don't really know until you start working, right? You don't know how it is to work in a team, how it is to day by day be exposed to the whole like the roller coaster of that is web development or programming, of the moments when you feel like a complete genius to like utter failure. Like I like every day I have this like ups and downs of like, oh, I'm so smart, like this is woohoo, and then like 5 minutes later it will be, how can't I remember this, like I'm supposed to know this, everyone knows this, why? um so it's good to know that that bet sort of worked out for me, because it did take me, I think, just 3 months, and then I was able to get like the first um, tiny freelancer gigs where I helped people with their websites, their WordPress websites, just like adding content, maybe styling a little bit. And then it took me, I think, in total 18 months to get to the job that I am at now. So which is like my first full-time web developer, permanent position type of job. But yeah, it was definitely a journey, and like I still nowadays still have doubts sometimes that, you know, like I feel I will never be able to catch up with the you know, people that graduated from computer science and by the same age have 10 years more of experience than I do. uh but yeah, it's fine, because like I also bring other things to the company. Like, I can see that my life experiences so far have um like also, so it's, being a good developer is not just your technical skill, right? It's not about the lines of code that you wrote and all the documentation you read. Like, of course that is a part of the job, but there's a lot of other things, like being a good communicator is very important, being able to receive feedback or get feedback, or being able to be like to do good reviews, and like just a lot of it is just communication. I find out a lot of it is about putting your ego aside, and you know, because like sometimes you would do a big chunk of work and someone would say, hey, that's not good, you should not be doing like that, like and I think being able to say that, oh, that's just because I don't know that, and this is the first time I'm doing it, so it's not me, it's just the fact that I'm new to this thing. So separating your kind of value and your ego from your work is very, very important, I find. Like accepting that as a junior also, um, you will make a lot of mistakes, and that's okay. So, and also like enjoying the ride. So like I think as a junior you are in this very interesting role where you get the power to code, but also maybe less of responsibility and blame if stuff goes wrong or if you don't know things. So I love it, because I work in a really supportive team where I can ask questions. No one ever makes me feel stupid, or like every my colleagues always take their time to explain things to me, or they acknowledge that this is difficult, like maybe they also are not sure. So if you're lucky enough to end up in a team like I did, it's like just a smooth ride. So like the most difficult thing then is just to get to the job, which is like a conversation that I have with a lot of self-taught uh, people or juniors. Like it's like, how do you get from doing tutorials, working on your own project, to get into that first job? Because I feel like once you're in, it's like a black to white. Like suddenly it's like, oh, I am a professional. What I did before is validated. I know enough to be paid for what I do, which like when you're on a self-taught journey, it's like, I'm sure you also have doubts, right? Like, is this
All the
stuff
time.
I should be doing? And like,
All the time. I think it got much better after I started streaming.
oh,
And you mentioned that when you were interviewing, I don't remember her name, but you were talking about the imposter syndrome. And I mentioned that as well on the chat. It was that after I've seen other streamers getting stuck on pretty much the same sort of problems that I get, and how they have to research and Google the same things that I have as well, it helps a lot. But I understand 100%, and I feel that 100% that there is so much that I still have to try to catch up. And this is just going to be a pain of our existence because we are self taught. And like you said, we don't have that CS degree. So there will be always bits that we don't know about, or there are always something that might not click straight away.
yeah,
I've seen Cole, he's another member of Party Corgi, doing some coding challenges, and he was doing one challenge which was uh, very algorithm based, and he went straight away, oh, I think this algorithm is like this because of that. So I think in a way it's kind of that knowledge that, at least in my case, I'm lacking, is reading a problem and say, okay, I can use this specific algorithm or this specific thing. But it's also very important that we need to take care of ourselves, and we need to not try to catch up all the time and have a break. And I'm sure you felt like that as well. So when you were starting, like you said, you were just doing everything until someone says, hey, can you just chill out a bit?
I mean, it's definitely because like I still feel, even though I've been working for almost a year now in this job, I still feel like I need to catch up. I need to put extra hours. So like I do 8 hours, and then that's never the end of it. Like I always put more time after work, either through streams, conversations, or like reading books on programming. I'm also part of a book club where we discuss programming, or like I just take courses. Like I'm, the egghead courses or front end masters courses, like all the courses. Like I have a growing list of like bookmarks and stuff you need to learn right now, obviously. And that's it's very, very tiring. And I'm also quite active on Twitter, and you can see on Twitter it's also, there's this like hustle culture of, you need to have a side project, and you need to have, publish your own libraries and all this stuff, which can be a lot of pressure, especially for a junior developer who on a daily basis at work, you already get a lot of pressure, right? Because like I work in a team with 3 senior developers, and I can't help it, but I always compare myself to them. And maybe they have like 5, 6, 10, 20 years more experience than I do, but I'm still like, oh, but they did it and I didn't do it. Like, why? And it's obviously it's normal that I don't know, and they know because I've done it 10 times before. But it's still like you have to be disciplined and good to yourself and say like I've done a good job, and like use the time wisely, like figure out what are the best ways and most effective ways for you to learn. Try not to compare yourself to others, right? Because that is, I think it's a big danger when you see, you know, I don't know, you see people like on Twitter, they would say, "Oh, my career path is first job. I was a junior developer. 3 years later, I was a senior developer, and I made $150,000." Like, what? you know, and that is like maybe one out of 1,000 junior developers, right? But that is still the story that you read, and you're like, oh.
I understand that completely. Completely. I am part of a maker community, and there is this amazing person. He's 18 now, but
Yeah.
I followed him when he was 16, and he created so many projects and amazing projects. And in my head, it's like, man, I'm almost 30 with it. I need to focus as much as I can to try
Yeah.
to come out. And exactly what you said, comparing yourself, there is a fine line between giving you some motivation to do something and just comparing yourself and start putting you down, and you think that, okay, this is not for me. Naren had a really good question, which I'm going to try to show.
Nareen always has good questions. So
Yes, and it's related to what sort of things should should you learn, or it's related to the things that we were talking about. Um,
so I think I have opinions about that for sure. But for me, it was at the beginning of my coding journey, I had two things in mind, uh, which, okay, I wasn't as disciplined in the beginning, but like the first one is like, it doesn't really matter what language you learn, as long as you learn one language really well, right? So you shouldn't be in the first maybe 6 months. I did the mistake of jumping from one thing to the other because I just didn't know. Like, I didn't know any better. So I would like start with Python, go to JavaScript, then like I would do the CS50 course, which is like C, and then I would be like just jumping, and that was bad. And then I realized like it doesn't matter what language you learn, because once you learn one really, really well, you can translate those things to another language. So knowing JavaScript really well, you can then approach Python or any other language and be like, oh, okay, so this is how you declare a variable, this is how you declare a function, this is how you do an if conditional, this is how you do a for loop. Like you can just kind of compare. And then the other thing for me was that so I basically was just I did a bit of right at the beginning. I did a bit of job search, and I was looking at what kind of jobs are most available for, especially for like people more in the beginning of their coding journey. So like I was not targeting stuff that's like 10 years of experience in Docker. Like no, like that you can't even have that. But so I just saw that there was a lot of need for React developers, and that's why I thought, okay, this seems to be a really hot thing, especially in startups, especially because I wanted to work in a smaller company because I thought that would give me like a more opportunities to work on different things. So yeah, I saw that there was a lot of need for that, and that's where I got my first internship. And like now, I basically do React and JavaScript on a daily basis. So I got, in a way, I was a little bit sensible, but also I got a bit lucky because yeah, I could also just, sometimes there's like a new stuff is published and then everyone's like, wow, you should learn Svelte or you should learn Tailwind or like something. But I kind of was on the market at the right time where React was becoming very, very popular, but it didn't have enough React developers. So I fit right in But I think there's like plenty of ways to get into that. So I know people that found success with Python, um, also like more backend stuff. Also, you can go like really into design. So there's like a lot of different paths. But the advice that I would give to beginners is like try to, I know it's hard, but try to become really good at one thing. Because once you're good at one thing, you can add on. But if you say, at your job interview, like, I'm really, really quite a bit, I know a little bit about 10 different things, that's not very impressive. But if you say, I really kick ass at JavaScript and I have some design skills, that is much better. And obviously, like, when you work in the startup, you become a little bit of a generalist because normally you work in small teams. So you have to know a bit of everything in a while. But when you interview for a job, I think it's much better thing to say like I'm like a master, or like I'm really great at one or two things, and then I can do some other things, and then I know a little bit about these other things. So I would definitely say like focus on a small, achievable, like one programming language, maybe a framework on top of it, or a library or something, and just be really good at that. And then because there's also companies that would say, okay, we're looking for a JavaScript developer, but you have amazing Python skills, we saw your open source contributions, we think that you can learn, so yeah, come work with us. So it's sometimes that also happens, right? Because especially when you're a junior, you don't bring amazing talent normally. Like you don't like you don't bring solutions or like new versions of React or something. Like basic stuff. So what they're looking for normally is like your ability to learn, your ability to receive feedback, how you communicate in a team. Like so, for example, particularly in my company, um, being able to say like when you don't know something or when to ask for help, like that is a skill. Like saying, okay, I gave it a good try, I gave it half a day, I have made zero progress, the best thing for me to do now is to ask for help. Like I'm not getting anywhere, I'm wasting time, I'm not learning, I'm just getting anxious, so I need to ask for help now. So things like that are like just being mature about who you are, what you can do, and being transparent. um, for my company also, because we are a distributed company, like being very good at communicating on like I'm online now, like I'm going to be offline now for 1 hour because I have a thing to do, but like just this basic stuff is what I think they all count. Like technical knowledge for sure, but there's a bazillion of other things that also matter when you are looking for a job. Now, what kind of questions are these really? So I did. So for me, like I did my fair share of like. So I did a lot of code wars when I was when I was looking for jobs and interviewing. I found that very, very helpful because you get to compare like your clunky, verbose solutions to one-liners. Um, so I did a lot of that, and I got quite okay with that. Oh, good. Can you hear me? Hmm. Yeah, we're. Yeah, I can hear you. Okay. This is just the growing pains of being a streamer. Fabio is like,
Yeah.
it's always tough.
It's my cable that is messed up.
Ah, yes, now
So
there's an issue with your audio. Like there's a hissing sound and then there's a complete cut and then it comes back.
the hissing sound is because it's picking up the microphone from the MacBook
Uh-huh,
instead.
uh-huh. Yeah, no, so now it's okay, I think. Uh, okay, so now it's fine, people are saying. So I am just checking the Twitch chat, and how do you manage to answer questions while you are in the stream? Because like I find it very difficult, like while I'm doing an interview, to answer questions without like clicky clacky in the background. So how do you do that? Yes.
Thing for you to use the camera microphone because my the wire of my Blue Yeti just died.
Oops.
So yeah, sorry about that. I'm really sorry about the issues with
That's
the camera, the sound.
don't worry, don't worry. This is like totally, it can happen.
Yeah. Um, you asked me about the how I
The
can
typing.
answer the questions. I have a very high noise cancelling, so then you shouldn't pick up. Although with the camera, I'm pretty sure you will hear everything because yeah, the camera it's very sensitive to every little sound.
Yeah, no, I think it's fine. Like there's a little bit of hissing, but like I had once I had a stream with well, like with this legit hacker that was in his basement and had all these fans going on and like all these machines, and he was in the basement, so I couldn't, like there was no windows, so I couldn't say like, can you turn off your air? Like so I thought that was impolite, but like I had all this noise coming, and I forgot to do in the OBS in the streamer thing, like when you have to do the input, I forgot to set it as my microphone. So the input was actually my MacBook's microphone, which was kind of like threatening to fly away. So like the fan was really going off. So like there was this fan, and then like this hacker guy's fans and machines, and like his audio was like he had this weird headphones, but like the microphone was quite far. So it was like this really difficult to listen to stream, but still because the content, that's what he was talking about, because he was talking about how to, basically the talk was about how to hack yourself. So he was like, he started by googling himself and then looking into his own, like what he can find about himself online. And it was so interesting that we did have a couple of complaints, but most of the people were like, just like, I really like, can you just I really would like to hear what you said.
You know, you
Yeah.
say that, but I watched that talk that you had, and I couldn't, I didn't really notice that at all. So you did a good job, definitely, because it was
No.
very good.
Oh really?
Yes,
Yeah. No.
yes, and I really liked. Even though I was paying for Linux Academy, and I did one preparation course for a white hacking certification, and a
Yeah.
lot of things I already sort of understood what he was saying, but
Yeah.
hearing what he was explaining and telling you how to do things, it was still amazing. I really enjoyed. Um,
Uh, yeah, we were just talking today about that we need to get him back because he's the reason I started talking to Cedric was so we organized this thing called Crypto Party, which is about like informing people how to stay safe online. Like that goes from can you not use password as your password, or like 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 is not a strong password, to like how do you set up your Facebook settings or whatever. So quite a few people that I know on Twitter got harassed. Like just people would be doxing them or like just being really unpleasant. So we started talking about like what do you do if someone does that to you, like given that the police sometimes is not informed enough, or they're like, oh, this is not really a real crime, like because no one is you know really physically in front of you. However, if someone on Twitter says, I know where you live and I'll be watching you or something creepy like that, right? Like you can feel like, help me. So then he was saying like it does happen that you are confronted with an issue and the police is not taking you seriously. What can you do? What are the best steps that you can do? And he was talking mostly about how you should start from day one to collect all the evidence, right? So that you can basically prepare a file that you can hand over to the police saying, on this day, this person threatened me with this, and blah, 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 blah. And then how do you go about trying to find the identity of the person behind an account? But yeah, that was very interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was very interesting. Just to circle back at the importance of communication skills,
Mhm.
it's very interesting that you said that because a friend of mine, Jacob, he is the creator of Obstroid, open source project that I'm part of. He had a check on my CV, and he mentioned exactly that. And he's a software engineer for a while now, and he was saying, "Look, you are putting so much details on the things that you have done, but you're not really focusing on communication skills, and that is possibly one of the most important skills that you can have and you can show that you have. Obviously, if you are trying to get a web developer position but you don't know HTML, you're probably not going to go that far. But it's like you said, when you are working on your own, when you're a self-taught, you don't really have to communicate with anybody other than yourself. So it's very easy. But then when you are starting working with a team, it's it gets a little bit trickier if you don't have that communication skill. And I'm assuming that if you were a teacher and also if you were living in China, you probably, well, I'm sure you have an amazing communication skills already. I can see it with your talks that you do on your Twitch channel. So yeah, I agree 100%. It's very important.
Yeah, and it's you don't see it as a requirement on a job description oftentimes. Like they wouldn't say, they would say, oh, you need 2 years of JavaScript experience and this and this and that, but they never say, you need to be able to be mature about things and able to say, communicate what you need and want and what you're afraid of and what you want to learn, and is this not working, tell us, right? So oftentimes that kind of falls under the, do you fit the company culture, right? That's what oftentimes they would say, but that essentially just means I think oftentimes it just means that, are you able to do all this stuff that oftentimes we take for granted, but not everyone has it. Um, like I've worked with people that would take, like you would maybe do a code review and you would say, oh, this is like this, and or I would do it like that, or this is not great, and they would take it personally, right? And and they would get upset with you, and that, and you would think like, but I'm just doing my job. You asked me for a code review, and you're upset with me about code. that is nothing to do with me. I just told you what I think. Um, so, for example, when I was doing the job interview, um, the coding challenge was, I really liked it. It was not like an algorithm thing. It was a solve this. There was like a login sign up page that was broken, so you had to fix it and also style it because it was a front end developer position. So I really liked that because it was like a practical. This is like so many sign up pages. Like this is like a real problem. And then the technical interview was just you talking about why you did it like that, why you organize your code like this, why did you style it like that, why did you choose this solution. So it was not about whether your solution is the best one. It was just about you being able to talk about your decision making. If someone said like, oh, okay, we expected you to say this or to do this, like not be offended or like but like just take it as a, oh yeah, okay, now I see it, it makes sense totally. um, so I think that is like a much better way of testing people for job interviews, especially because the entire team was involved, so I was able to see whether I could talk to people as well. Because a lot of times I find the issue is not the work itself but the people you work with, because you're not able to, like, you can say the same thing to two different people, and like with the first one we'll be like, oh yeah, we understand each other, and with the second one there will be like a complete mismatch, and it's like, but is it me, is it them, what am I saying wrong? And sometimes it's just you don't fit, like you don't communicate the way people understand. I don't know, I really don't know.
Maybe it's what
um
they say on the some of parts of the interview is just not only you showing what you know, but the assessor is also trying to figure out if you are a good fit for the team.
yeah.
So sometimes you just don't click with someone, and with someone else you do. So then, even if you say something and you're coming from a very positive and trying helpful way, the person might still take it a little bit at heart because you don't really click with that person. I I'm a maintainer for Opsroid, so I see sometimes I'm trying to say, oh, maybe you can do this and maybe do that, and sometimes people seem to be a bit upset and say, well, I'm just saying that we have some ways to do things and we have some style guidelines. That's the only reason why I mentioned that. As a maintainer, I have to say that, but I'm not saying that everything you've done is rubbish, because it's not. you just you just have to follow this. And this is where the communication skills and the people skills itself comes to play. Is you spot those issues very quickly and you know how to deal with it. But on the requirements, when you're looking for a job, the requirements are so extensive that it's quite hard to say, I need this. And in some cases, for some companies, they will be like, this is more than obvious that you have to have these skills. So I'm not going to mention that. But like you said, if you show those communication skills and those people skills, they will really help you maybe get an edge against someone that might have an amazing portfolio but might not do so well in interviews or in communication. A lot of times when you do an interview, it's already very stressful, and usually the person that's interviewing you, they know exactly how it is because they interview 100 people and they know, yeah, this person is going to be stressed, so they always try to make you feel comfortable. At least this is my experience on all the interviews I've done, but I haven't done interviews for a developer position yet, so I'm not entirely sure what to expect, to be honest. Can you can you share with us your experience, because I'm really interested in knowing how was that. To me it seems very scary.
It is. And so I think the scariest bit is that um, you never know when you're ready. That is problem. Like there's no, you never feel, oh, green flag, like let's go. Like I know enough now to be a professional paid developer. Like you never get that. You like I still have so many things on my list of things to do, things that I wish I would know, things I think other people with the same experience maybe already know and I don't know. So that's the big issue. Like you never feel like you're ready. So you have to go against yourself and like start looking for jobs even though you feel like you're not ready. So that's number one. Um, so me, I was not really aggressively looking for a job because we were moving. So because everyone told me that it's impossible to get a remote position as a junior developer. And we were moving from the UK to Belgium. I thought, okay, I need to wait until we get here and then I will look for an in-office job because apparently I need someone to look over what I'm doing and be there next to me to explain stuff to me. That is not true. Like there are jobs for junior developers as well that um, you can do from your home and you can be taught and supervised from your home because now there's just so many ways of like doing video communications, of doing pair programming through like VS Code, live share, or like that's like there's no excuses. Like you can maybe even do it better and more effectively while being distributed. So that's not an issue. So I think my approach to jobs was more I identified a company that I liked and I sent them like a very passionate introduction. And sometimes I got a response and I would get a freelance, like a gig, which was also cool. Um, and I think I applied to around 10 or maybe like 15 jobs in total. And I would hear back from like five. And then I think I'm not sure how many I did in the next stage. But like the one that I ended up getting in the end, I saw a Twitter posting for, so the job posting was like, we're looking for a junior front-end developer that is good with React and Sass. And we are happy to teach you the rest and we don't expect you to know everything. So like, oh, that's good. That's excellent. And from the first reply that I got, which was like, because you when you're in the process for interviewing, like you see all these good signs and bad signs. Like I sent a letter, I sent an email, and like the next day I got a reply and it was friendly and funny and like fast, right? So then you reply, and then like the communication is really good. So that's a really good sign. So I got from the first, so I sent my CV, I got a reply. They said, oh, we would be interested in talking to you more. I think that was like the next day or I think I was like, yeah, sure, next day, I'm excited, let's do it, boom. Like, I don't want to wait. Like, I don't want to wait for you to get, and they told me that one of the reasons, like, because they had a few people in interviewing at the same time, but I was the fastest. Like, I got through all the stages. By the time the people were like, yeah, maybe, but I was like, the way I approached it was like I was interviewing for one job at a time. So if this job didn't pan out, then I would apply for another one. If I didn't get a reply, I would apply for another one. So I was never in a position where I had like three maybes in the air. I thought that was too stressful. So anyway, I think like in 2-3 days after my initial email, I got the first screening interview with the hiring manager, and we like super clicked. And then like they just told me like, oh, now you get this technical challenge, you get a week to do it. I think I sent my solution like next day. Like I just worked the whole day. I was like, and they said, oh, you shouldn't spend more than like 3-4 hours or like 2 evenings. And I was like the whole day, like, sure, this was 3 hours, go send it. And then they said, oh, great, like let's do a technical interview. I think it like the whole 5 stages, it took me 2 weeks to go through them.
And this
like
was
really, really fast.
and this
Yeah,
was for
for me.
Vibbio?
Yeah.
Okay.
This was
Okay.
for me. So this was the only one that I kind of went past the coding challenge. But because it was the only one that had a different approach. Like I would always get the send your CV, then do a stupid algorithm challenge. And I would always like be like, ugh, why am I doing this? like you're not really motivated. Like, what is this? So I would like do a half-ass job and then like send a like, ugh, and I would never get past. Like, so for me, the fact that I got from the CV straight to like the hiring, like my manager, my current manager interviewed me, and I was like, yeah, I want to work there. This is cool. Like that just got me the motivation to like really try to do my best in the following stages.
Mhm.
Because like otherwise you just feel like, oh, they probably like have 50 people. Like it's impossible that like unless like I spend a lot of time, it's very difficult for me to stand out because they're just like looking for the most efficient result, or I don't know what they're looking for. Because if you get an algorithm challenge, there's not that many ways that you can be creative or like express yourself. Like maybe you can put like funny variable names, but otherwise there's not much you can do. So like that never really inspired me. But yeah,
Yeah.
I would definitely count myself as like super lucky to be, because like at that time I was really not active on Twitter either. um and I just like saw it on my commute one day, and I was like, okay, I sent an email to myself like, check this when you get back. And like and then I did, and I sent, and like, yeah, it was just really perfect.
Do you think when you do these coding challenges and they say they shouldn't take more than 3 hours, do you think as a company they give you this time frame because they expect you to be maybe this productive, or maybe you can beat this specific problem in 3 hours, and then when you get hired and you start working on the team, that's kind of the level that they expect you to work on, or it's unrelated?
I think a lot of time the issue is that the companies don't think enough about how they hire people. So oftentimes it's like they copy paste, or they do what other companies are doing, or they just do like the path of least resistance, thinking like, oh, we'll get 100 interviews for sure, we'll get a good candidate out of this one. And I think that's the bad approach to it. I think you should go like the way Vibbio is going about. So right now, we also, for new hires, we introduced another thing, which is a writing assignment.
Mhm.
Because again, we are a distributed company, communication is very important. A lot of things will be written, so we want to see how you can write. um, so I think, yes, of course there's an initial screening, because like if you have a completely different experience from what we need, eh, like that makes you doubt, like, have you read the job description? Because we're not looking for a Java developer, right? um, so obviously if you, or like a lot of responses are just like copy pasted stuff, like, come on, if you want this job, at least like put something like, hello BBR, like put some thought into it. So I think the issues from both sides, like also the candidates often like, we go for quantity, like
Mhm.
quality. And so my approach was definitely quality. So I was looking for like good signs on the way. So if the company, it was a company I liked, or yeah, like if the communication was good, then that inspired me to make an extra effort. And like at that point, when I was already sold on the idea, like I was like, I don't care about 3-4 hours limit. Like I want to do a kick-ass job so that they hire me.
Of
Like
course.
I want this job. So with me, it's like, uh, I a lot of times I don't particularly get inspired, so I just do like the minimum effort. But when I do get inspired, I'm like, yeah, no, I will get this. So then I just do like whatever it takes. So if that means like checking your emails and like responding within a half hour that they send you an email, like, yeah, I'm super like, come on, let's go. Yeah, so I think the hiring process could be better for both
Mhm.
sides if we were both like more focused on quality. If we kept in mind like if good communication was important, and like for example, if I say, oh, I'm super passionate and interested in working for your company, yeah, it takes me 1 week to answer to your email, like that is not a good signal, right? Like if I
Yeah.
want to work for you, and this is like, I'm really excited, it makes sense that you answer quickly and say like, yeah, come on, let's move forward. um, but at least, I mean, that was my experience. I know there's there are people that I don't know, have to send 100 job applications and they get like the first interview. There are people that I still think that a lot of, especially junior jobs, I still have to do with your network. So the job that I heard, it was on Twitter, but someone from Mozilla posted it. So that's where I did the internship. So if I didn't follow her, I wouldn't know about this job. So in a way, it was also the network that helped me. And I think for a junior developer, I think it's very important that you put the time into talking to other developers, or like, I don't know, like just do whatever you can do to make you stand out. So for me, it was also doing a lot of community work, organizing lots of things, talking, like just being not, because like if there's 100 people, but you're the only one that does this,
You are
like
going
you're
to
the
stand
only,
out.
yeah, or you can say like, oh, I'm a junior developer, but I already did a couple of technical talks, and you can. So what I did for this my job application was like, oh, like I put the links to my talks. Like this is I spoke here, like I did that. Like that also makes you stand out in a way, I think.
Just out of curiosity, how many job applications did you send until you get this one? And the reason why I'm asking that is to follow up with another question. And this is something that my friend mentioned is hiring in IT is a little bit different than other markets. So you should structure your CV to sort of go with the requirements. So let's say that in the requirements, the first thing that's in the requirement is you need to like open source. The second is you need to know React. The third is you need to know Python. So instead of going, I do JavaScript and I do Python and I do whatever, you go first, you go with the open source example if you have, then you go with the React, and then you go with, so you are following the pattern of the requirements, and then on your cover letter, if someone asks you to present a cover letter, which most companies do for what I've been seeing, you will always relate to those requirements and try to give a bit more information other than what's in your CV, so then you can get that bridge from your CV and then what you've been doing. And even if you don't have a particular skill, you say, I don't have this particular skill, but I'm more than happy to learn that.
It's a good question. So for me, again, I was trying to be like, because I was older, for to be interviewing for a junior developer position, I did feel like I had the advantage of seeing like some things that maybe a younger person wouldn't see. So I didn't interview for positions that I knew I didn't have any chance of getting the job. So if it looked like a really competitive place that they would like really put an emphasis on like younger candidates, like I would not, even if the job, like if I had all the skills, I would not interview for. Most, I think in total, I think it was between 10 and 15 jobs. Of them, 10 were not actually posting on a job opening. So I would either I would write to the company that I thought I liked. So for example, if I say I care about cybersecurity and then there's a company that does cybersecurity, I would write to them and make a point of saying like, I'm like curious and passionate about this because I did all of these things. There were also like around 5 jobs that my former, because I had an internship at Mozilla before this current role, and he recommended me like a couple of roles. So I just wrote to them directly, and like one of them later on like said, but I already got Vibbio. They said, oh, we will be super like interested, like we're not hiring, but like you will be the right fit, like go. So from that, I concluded that first, again, your network is very, very invaluable. If someone can give you an introduction, if a manager, a mentor, another developer, anyone can say, like, oh, I know this person, they could be the right fit. Like, they're easy to talk to. They're like, just talk to them. I think that is very, very helpful. I would not go for jobs that I know hundreds of other people apply to. Like, I just no. And also because so I never aimed for like a FANG, like a Facebook, like a big company. I never cared about that. So I also thought like it doesn't really matter what is my first job. I just want a job so I can
Mhm.
say I can do this. Um, so like not going for jobs that everyone else goes for, having something that no one else has, and maybe on top of that having a person that introduces you to the job, like that is I think already a winning combination. That's I think if I went back, I think that would still be my approach. Like
Yeah.
asking like even in your so I was like in a bazillion of meetups and asking them, like I almost took a job but then we were moving, so but like and it was like a salary wasn't great, like but it was close to me and it was a small company and they told me like, oh, you will just be working, you will just be coding a lot and then all these different things, and I was like, yeah, duh, I'll do that, like I will do it for a year, like even if I have to pay for it, like just you feel you just need to get a job, right? To get in, to validate that you can do it, to because and also everyone tells you like it's so much easier to go from that job to your next job, right? So I think trying not to be too picky. So like for me, I also said to myself like, yeah, I would commute for a year or two, or I would work longer hours, or I would work in a language that maybe I'm not super passionate about, or whatever. Like I would do this for a year or two. Doesn't matter because that from then on you get to choose, right? And again, I was lucky to kind of land in a company that I like completely is um, like aligned with what I want and what I need. So that I was lucky. But again, if there were other opportunities, I think, um, I mean, I'm not saying that as a junior developer, you don't have a choice and you should work in any whatever company. But I do think that um, in no matter where, you will be able to learn and you will be able to benefit. And oftentimes it just needs that. Like it's much easier to go from worked for a year as a web developer here and then interviewing than saying, oh, I did a bazillion of tutorials and hey, this is my portfolio. Like, and I understand why companies are skeptical to hire someone like that because again, you are an unknown, right? Like no one is vouching for you because no one can because you've not worked for anyone. So I do think the first job is not um, it's not that important what you do. Maybe again, like I've had a good experience. I've heard from a couple of other junior developers that they've not landed in a very supportive environment, and I understand that that is very difficult. But again, I would try to persist for a year and then just go somewhere else. You
And
you
that,
have a much better leverage already.
yeah, and that's just, you never know if you are going to be a good fit or if you're going to have a good team to work on, or if you're going to experience that unless you actually go get the job and you see. And like you said, the experience is probably one of the most important things. In my case, I know things and I contribute to open source and I do projects, but then other than that, I don't really have a professional experience. So I'm already losing points when I send my CV because unless you are being screened by other developers, if you are being screened by HR people, they probably will look and say, "Oh, okay, you have no experience. Okay, next," and that's it. And I have a question from Neil and Jay. How much do you learn about fundamentals versus how do you learn the details of the tools you're using?
How much you learn about fundamentals versus how do you learn the detail of the tool you're using? Oh, so I guess fundamentals like programming, computer science concepts, and the tools you're using, like your text editor, or
Yeah, I would assume that what Dave meant was the things you have learned in free codecamp
mm,
versus what you're using now. If you are still using those concepts that you have learned, or now you've moved to something completely different, and the only thing you are using is React.
um, So I'm still learning a lot of things every day, and what I try to keep in mind the most is like what I'm learning, the way I'm learning is effective, and whether what I'm learning is useful. So in the beginning, I was very much focused on project knowledge. So like, how do you in a React project, how do you code a login page, or how do you use React Router, or like specific stuff. And now that I've been working for a little while, I'm kind of finding myself to go back and like try to understand more like computer sciencey concepts, and what does that mean, how does that relate to a specific programming language, how does that relate to my work. So I would say in the beginning, like everyone would also tell me like, just Eva, just read docs, like docs are so, just read docs, like this community has really good docs. And I would try to read it, and I would be just like, but this is so dense, I can read like half a page, and then
If
my
you
head
are,
is
yeah.
full, and it's too much, it's just too much, like everything is new, you keep throwing these definitions at me, no way that I can read the docs. Right?
I think you
So
need to have that experience coding and know a bit before you can start with the documentation. That's good if you
definitely.
are already okay with React and you already know, but just starting by reading documentation, it can be really scary, like you say.
Yeah, and like even for React, they would say, "Eva, just read React documentation," and I would be like, I would go there, I would read it, and then like, I don't know anything, I'm shit at this, I should quit now. So I think as a beginner, you need to do stuff, make the mistakes, figure out why this is not good, and then like go back to the docs, refer to one or two things, and then that's like, okay, yeah, enough. Whereas now, so now that I'm a bit better, it's now I can actually do this, right? Like now I can go back and like, I know this, I know that, oh, this is new, interesting, I know this, I know that. So it's much easier. So now I understand when other developers say go read the docs, they don't mean that you should know, that you should learn everything from scratch.
Mhm.
What they mean is just like read it, and you will like fill in the gaps. Like a lot of things are gonna be familiar. This is how you implement it here. Like it's just, it's different. Like now finally I am at a point when I can read something very technical and persist at it. It's not, I don't feel like, oh, this is all new, this language is horrible, like I don't understand, why do they have to make it so confusing? There are, I'm sure, simpler English words to say the same things, why do you have to say it like this? um, so like I can do it now, but in the beginning I was not able to do it. And luckily I get, as long as I am doing something, I get, um, like, so for me, if someone says do this and I can't do it, I will still always find a way to do it on my own, and like, or find a different way. Or like someone would say, oh, read this documentation to learn this, and I would say, oh, that doesn't make sense to me, but I will find a different source and I will still learn it. And maybe it's going to take me longer, maybe I will have to build more projects, but I'm still going to learn it, but it's just going to be my way. So I find, and this is something that I got from having my background in learning like human languages, is that the knowledge is not just that you don't just go to a class and learn Chinese. Like no one is just gonna give you Chinese. Like you need to go talk to Chinese people. You need to watch Chinese movies, listen to Chinese, like do the work on your own. Find, figure out what way is it that you learn best, and just do that, right? Um, so that is kind of like my approach these days. I also try to mix it with like productivity type of things, like how to get better at, like using text editor, how to get better at using the keyboard. Like I did even like some touch typing stuff. So I try to mix and match different things, or like when something gets too heavy, I do something more like manual. Or um, so for me, normally it's just like I would say, okay, so I did work 8 hours, it was fine, and now I will do 2 hours on my own doing something. And then I just try not to be too hard on myself, because it's very easy when you're self-taught and you're your own teacher and assessor, and like you give yourself grades and you're like, you should know this. You read about this. Why did you forget, right? So I try not to be too hard on myself. Um, and like when I do mistakes, I try to like, everyone does it, right? Everyone makes mistakes. People Google these things. Like I can Google this. So that helps as well. And then, so what I recently I mentioned that I'm in a book club, and we are talking about different programming languages, and I found that very, very helpful. Not necessarily because I know other programming languages, but reading about how different things are implemented, like talking to other developers about programming and computer science concepts, kind of, I don't know, just makes it easier, because then you don't just hear these weird words and you're like, I don't know what concurrency means. Should I know what concurrency means? Let's Google what concurrency means. And then like, I still don't understand what this means. But like talking to other people and asking questions, that kind of really also helped me a lot. And just, I don't know, like taking ownership of what you know and what you don't know. Like I don't try to pretend that I know everything. So when I don't, I say I don't, and I ask someone else to explain it to me. And then sometimes you figure out that the other person doesn't know it either, and it's like, ew, you're supposed to know this. Why are you? So yeah, no, I think it's fun, but again, I find it. I find that like now I'm on the other side. Like I have a job and I'm quite good at what I'm doing. So it's easy for me to say, this is my story. You should follow it. Right? Because it kind of worked out for me. But it doesn't mean that it's going to work out for you the way it did for me. It's different circumstances. We're all different. Like that is the beauty of being a career changer, right? That we are all these different people with different experiences. There's like, you're not 22 and a CS graduate that grew up in this town, and then like you have all this life experience that you can bring to your job, which makes you just a variable. Like we're all like, I mean, you're the flying death, Fabio, right? Like you, like from your work, like from the way you work, like you're used to stress at work, like unpredictable stuff, like different languages, like all these things that so many people are not exposed to, and they don't know what to do with, that you are like, whatever, like, yeah, that crashed, whatever, like I can deal with that.
Well, depends on what is broken on a plane. That's the
Yes,
thing.
I was
But
gonna say.
it's something that you learn quite quickly, because as a passenger, and if you don't fly that often, you kind of know exactly, if you hear a sound, you'll be like, huh, that sounds funny. What's that? And then you look at the flight attendants, you're like, okay, they seem okay, so that's not worrying. The problem is when you hear a sound and the flight attendants look at each other like,
I'm gonna sit down and
and
stop
there's
myself.
yeah, and there's that exchange of looks. She's like, "Have you heard that?" Yeah. Say, okay, I'm putting this trolley away, and I'm going to wait for the captain to let me know if there is something, or if he doesn't, I'm going to call him and say, "I heard this." Um, Luckily, I've been very lucky that so far the worst parts that I had to deal with was medicals.
Mm.
So someone fell ill. Even the medicals weren't very serious. Most serious one I had was a hypoglycemia attack, but we managed to do everything that we had to do on board, and we didn't have to divert anywhere. So that was the most stressful situation, I would say, because you know that at any moment that person can go into coma, so you have to act now. So yeah, but I've heard a few weird noises and tell the captain and say, oh yeah, this is this thing or that thing. Don't worry, we get the engineer when we land, so you're not worried. So if the captain is not worried, it's fine. If he says, yeah, I've heard that as well, keep an eye on it. You start thinking, huh, that's not a good sign. And I have a question about communities.
Mm.
So is there an online community that you recommend to talk to other devs? Let's say that community about sharing the books that you mentioned.
Of course, there is my community. I mean, no, I think the best community is the one that you are involved in. Like, so before this COVID stuff, I think for me, I would always look for a local community, and if there was none, I would start like doing something about it. Because I just think I get so much from interacting with people, just from teaching. Like I learned so much by teaching other people, and like sometimes you teach a complete beginner, and they ask you a question, and you're like, "Oh, I don't really know about this stuff that I kept saying that I know, but I'm just like, ignore me." So I've learned so much just by teaching. So right now I'm in a couple of Discord groups. I am in, so we're in the same one, the party corgi one.
Yeah.
But that one's quite big. Like I find it difficult to navigate. It's so huge. So it's like, I find like after, I don't know, like 100 people, it's very difficult for me to understand what's happening, because obviously with different time zones, and then especially if you have a lot of Americans, and like they post like super late, and then you wake up and it's like, whoa, all these things,
Yeah.
all these things happen. And then, but when you are active, like it's just silence. Like all Americans are asleep right now. So I think for that reason, it's important that you find your local community. Um, I keep like talking to people like that are in similar position than I am, just to kind of keep tabs on where I am. So like other maybe like self-taught or junior developers, or like mid-career developers. I talk a lot to my team, the developers in my team, even though like they're super super senior, so like they're not really understanding. They're just complaining like, when I was starting, like it was so difficult. Now it's so easy for you. Like, yeah, okay, sure, but the competition, come on.
And you have more things to learn now than 10 years
Right,
ago. We
yeah,
mentioned that
for
on the
sure.
previous episode, that now
Yes,
you have a million things, and there's million things coming out that it's just hard to get started. And I agree with you. I would say 100 people. I mentioned that to my wife actually. A community of 100 people, it's manageable. A bit more than that, it starts to get really hard, and it's even worse when you get a lot of time zones. So sometimes
yeah,
you're awake and there is no one there.
yeah.
Um, I remember one community that I was part of. It was game based. It was about a game that, because of my weird schedules, the community that I was close to was the Australian time zone, and I used to have a blast talking with Australians. But I know that I won't be able to do that now because I have a different time zone. So then I just lost contact with all of them, which is a shame. You mentioned your community, which is
Mm.
Include JS, correct?
Yeah, include JS. So I mostly right now we're online. So I do
Mhm.
streams on Mondays and Wednesdays, and the idea is to talk to people that are like in similar shoes, kind of like I say 0 to 3 years of programming experience, and we just have this random kind of talks on anything web development or just anything. So for me, it's also I like to surround myself also with people that are like similarly quite motivated, and so like I spent some time with Egghead. So they have this
Mhm.
program called Learner Advocate, where you are essentially paid to do really good notes of Egghead tutorials. So I did that for a little bit, but the the course and the being paid for that, for the notes, that was okay. But like what I find invaluable is the community. So now I'm on their Discord group, and it's just like people that are very very excited about learning and teaching, and like I just find that very um yeah, just very important. I'm like anti this whole hustling, give me money culture. So when I find people that are not like that, I just like really tune into them, and I try to ignore everyone else. So like on Twitter, there's a bunch of people that I really like. If I'm learning something specific, I also like tune into that. So right now I am learning a lot about 11T.
Mhm.
So I just I find people that are good at it or have tutorials, and I just go like on Twitter. I'm like, hey. So, and then like I find that like if you do the work and ask a good question, like rarely would someone just ignore you. Like just don't be that creepy person that goes to your Twitter DM like hi. Like that is not productive. But if you go and say hi, I'm this and this and that, I have this question like very specific, you mentioned it's in your blog or your course, but I didn't find out like how to do it like this. I find that it's people are normally very helpful and like to like if they're knowledgeable about something and they see that you're just genuinely trying to learn, they will be like, okay, of course, yeah, do it. And that's why also I do the streams. It's just so I don't get lazy and like focus too much on my world and what I do and what I need. I try to get a bit more general knowledge. So that's why I opened up my stream to like just anything to do. Like the topic is not important. What I want is for you to be a good teacher. If you're a good teacher, you can teach me anything. And if it's anything to do with programming, I'm sure it's going to be somehow useful and important to me. So that's how kind of I pitched it, and it's been working quite well. Because yeah, then you get, and it's quite, like how it is when you stream and you don't really know the person normally, and it's like, okay, so we're gonna have a 1 hour stream with this person. I hope they're talkative, because like sometimes it would happen that I would prepare questions and it would just be like,
Yes.
the other person would be like, come on,
Yes.
work with me, work with me.
I have that sometimes at work when I'm working with someone that's maybe the person is tired or we just don't click straight away or something
Yeah.
of the sort. And you ask one question, and the person's like, oh, and then this. Yeah. After the third attempt, I'm saying, okay, well, clearly you don't want to talk. It's fine. We can just chill out. It's fine. But it's hard if you are streaming and you are trying to show the other person. So it's not about you, it's the other person. So I understand completely. And also, you always hope that your audio works fine, which today hasn't been working fine. So I apologize for that.
But Fabio, you were, I think, quite good under a stressful situation. You were like, yeah, the audio is not working. Let me just like fiddle, and click. And it's like, well, I think that is also a good practice.
That's the flight attendant experience. That you might be extremely stressed, but you will always be fine.
I am actually quite anxious underneath this.
Just don't show up. It's fine. Just put a smile, and you can do everything.
See, I think so. So, are you at the stage at the moment when you are already interviewing, or how? What stage are you at?
I'm on the stage of sending CVs. I've got 2 rejections, which, to be honest, I expect that because the requirements of these 2 companies that I send the CV, they were really high. They were more for a medium position, but they were asking for, well, one of them was asking more for backend, so they were asking about Python and all the things that deal with backends. The other one was for a front end, but it was for a medium level position. So I look at the company and I said, you know what, this company, what they do seems really cool to work on this particular subject. So I'm going to send the CV and I'm going to see if I'm able to do something. Even if I don't tick all the boxes, then I'll just try. So in a way, I was expecting to get the rejections, but so far that's all I've got bad news. I've seen a lot of other CVs that I really wanted to get the job on. One of them is Octopus Energy, which is actually my energy provider, which is really fun. But they use all the green energies. They focus a lot on wind and solar energy. So I really like the whole green vibe, and
Yeah.
their interview process. They try to be very inclusive, and they try to be very open-minded. That even if you don't have a CS background, you will still have
Mhm.
some value. So there's a few other companies that I was looking at it and said I would love to work for these companies, or they are working on something. I'm sending more CVs than maybe what you were doing, because you say you were doing one by one. But I'm trying to have a look at all of the interesting proposals
Mm.
companies and send the CVs. But I started last Friday, something like that. So it's
Yeah.
very brand new. But I've
So
been a flight attendant for 6 years, and I've been learning how to code for 4 years, and I've been trying to create projects. And today I've been working on sketching a new project that I have in the oven. So I want to start working on that to try to improve my portfolio. So we'll see how it goes.
so what made you finally like turn on the switch? Like what made you start sending the CVs out?
So I've been thinking to do this jump for a year and a half, something like that. I've always wanted to do something with programming or something with computers, but things with life happened, and I've been going around and around. So I did a journalism degree in high school, I did a tourism degree in university, and I did one MITx course that was Introduction to Computer Science with Python. There's an extra bit which I never remember. I think it was Computer Science and Computing with Python, and I
Okay.
just fell in love with it. And after I became a flight attendant, I was traveling all over. And after the 2 years, I was getting ready, having a shower, getting ready. I was listening to a podcast, and I had that light bulb moment that the person in the podcast was saying, you need to do something that you don't see the time passing, that you can just sit down, work on this particular thing, and you will do it for free. And I was like, hey, that for me, it's code. But at the time, I was 26. And I've I always felt that I was too old to get started.
Mm.
I always felt that I should have started when I was a teenager, or I should have started way earlier. So these first 2 years that I was doing all the tutorials, doing all the courses, reading all the things, I was trying to catch up so much time, and eventually I felt extremely tired because I do the shift work as well. So,
Mm.
and well, you definitely know because you went through the same thing. And when you do that career change, like you were saying, when you are a bit older, you always feel that, man, I have so much to catch up. Um, and then I always wanted to contribute to open source. For me, that was a mark that you were a good developer. And then I started contributing to open source, and I was like, oh wait, no, this is a cool thing to do, but it doesn't mean that you're a brilliant developer because you contribute to open source. You will get better because you're doing the code reviews, you are getting contact with code and how other people approach a problem. So it's a plus, but it's not what makes you an extremely amazing developer. I'm not sure if you agree with that.
Oh, I'm not sure what makes you an extremely good developer. I think it depends on what your role is supposed to be. I think for a senior developer, more than being like super productive and coding, it's more about teaching. It's more about like the other stuff, like like mentoring, about just other things. So I think maybe as a mid developer, maybe you're more prolific in coding. And I think as a senior, someone that knows a lot, you should be devoting a lot of time to teaching others, because otherwise it's a little bit of a waste. I know that a lot of people are super geared into just coding and being better at that, and like that's also okay. But I think if you know a lot and if you're good at teaching, it's kind of almost your responsibility that you do it. Otherwise, it's a waste, because one person can teach 10, and then 10, you can elevate 10 people, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that everyone is good at teaching, and that everyone should teach. You can get bad teachers. I've had mostly bad teachers throughout my life, and that's why I think I appreciate it so much when I find someone that is very good at teaching, and I just would, I would just be like, you should teach more.
Yeah.
you should do more courses, because you're really good, and not everyone is good. You should do it. Yeah, so I think it's a really, to me, it's definitely not about just the clever lines of code that you wrote. Maybe if you were at that cutting edge of inventing stuff, but normally for day-to-day work, it's not, being a good developer is also about being an excellent colleague, about being receptive to criticism, about thinking about other people. Like for me, the fact that my other developers in my team, like sometimes I would just get like these DMs and saying like, Eva, like you're too hard on yourself. You're doing a great job. And I'm like, ah, that's so nice. Like that's so nice that you say that and that you think about that, right? And it's so motivating, because I am, and everyone knows that I'm really hard on myself. So it's good to hear from others. So I think like the higher you are and the more experienced you are, the more you should be thinking about how you look to others, how you look to your peers, how you look to the juniors, like what kind of a role model you are. I think that's very important. And I keep saying that, as a manager, also it's super cool to code, but as a manager, you can lead a team of coders, and you can do even more, and you can inspire others and problem solve. And like sometimes you can have a team of amazing developers, but they're toxic to each other and they're just like self-destruct. And you can, as a manager, maybe you can solve that, or like get rid of the wrong person, hire a new person, and then really elevate the entire team. So yeah, for me, definitely it's not just about coding. It's like, because I can see it in my day-to-day life. A lot is about explaining things to other people, or taking initiative, or volunteering for stuff that no one else wants to do. Or like it's a lot of little things. It's like being a leader in a way, not just in tech, or like being responsible for your decisions, or like saying like, oh, we should really try to minimize the number of cookies that we have, and like be as safe as possible. Like no one's paying for us. Like our app is not going to be faster, but it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And like being annoying about like I'm going to spend time doing this. Again, it's not going to make our app faster, but it's the right thing to do. So that, I think, yeah, is for me, those are markings of a good developer, that you think about the broader picture, about what you're doing, your impact, about your voice. Like sometimes you are privileged and you have a voice, and you should use it for stuff to amplify others. You can mentor others, you can give scholarships to others, you can get people to contribute to open source and guide them through that. You can, I don't know, you can do so many things. So I think for me that is a package, and a marking of a good developer.
It's interesting that you say that, because on the chat, Vibbio was saying that when you start later in your career, you bring more maturity and life experience, and especially in your case, you had that contact with teaching and with different cultures, and moving to UK, moving to Belgium. So all of this, it just gives you more value, and you can deal with situations better than someone that haven't gone through those experiences. I'm not sure how is it in I tech position or in a developer team, but for what you say, it seems to be the same sort of way to deal with a team. For the manager perspective, I see that on the plane we are always four, or at least on our planes. So you have the manager, and then you have three just flight attendants. And the manager is always that person that they had the same training as you, but the manager is always the one that will try to solve the issue, because in a way it's their head as well, but also they are the one that power the team. So then if there is some sort of problem that is going to start, and if the two cabin crew they can't sort themselves out, then the cabin manager will have to come and make a decision and say, okay, you can't work together, so you're not going to be working together, you're going to be working at the front of the plane, and I'll change your position. So then you have to sort of manage a team like that, and it seems to me that you also have to do with that sort of management as well in a developer position.
I think when you are we moved, I think, 3 countries in the last 10 years. And when you're so used to new things, and like you just know you're going to be okay, and tech can be very scary in a way that things are changing and you have to learn all the time. But I think if you can bring your life experience that is also like you being very good at dealing with stress and new stuff, I think that kind of makes you prepared for working in tech better as well. Because oftentimes you will work for sure with people from all parts of the world. You will like not deal with native English speakers. Like I'm not a native English speaker, but I speak in English at my work. In my company, I think we're like 13 people now, but from 7 different countries. And you work in different time zones, you work in like all these things, communication issues, like all these potential problems that if you're someone with other life experiences, you are maybe more prepared. And again, I going back to that again, as a person, an older person joining tech, that is something that you just have more than a younger person that is not being faced with that, didn't have to be faced with that, like maybe just doesn't have the experience, and that is something that to you maybe is just natural, like you don't even think about it, right? It doesn't even stress you, it's like it's normal to you, whereas to a younger person it's like like it's because I've talked to younger junior developers, and they're like that is the difficult thing for them, not the technical stuff, but dealing with people. And for me, it's like dealing with people. Yeah, I can get that. It's the technical stuff.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, you say that your team is multi-distributed. Do you work in English all the time since
Yeah.
you are based in Belgium? Okay. I was wondering if you had to do that management as well.
So the company I work for Vibbio is a Norwegian company.
Okay.
So half of my co-workers are Norwegian, and the rest are like just from like Australia, Germany, Palestine, like all everywhere. But yeah, we use English to communicate, which I think when you work in tech is kind of a natural choice because all the documentation, all of the tech stuff normally is in English. So it's like I don't even think about it. Like I'm Slovenian, and I don't speak Slovenian a lot. Like in the last 10 years, I've mostly spoken English. So it's like, I don't even think about it. And I think if I had to go back in Slovenia working tech, it would be, I don't know, how do you express? I guess it would be Slovenianism. So you would use an English term, but maybe add a Slovenian bit to it.
I think me going back to Portugal would be exactly the same thing. I think even now when I go to Portugal, last time it was last year, so it's been a year since I've been to Portugal to see my mom. if I am tired, there's a lot of words I can't even say in Portuguese anymore, because the only person that I speak in Portuguese with is either my best friend or my mom, or if I have a passenger that's Portuguese or a colleague that's Portuguese, but it's quite rare. So we speak in English at home. I live in UK, so English is my main language, or the main language that I use. So I understand that completely. I would like to thank you so much for the talk. Again, sorry about the voice issues, but we caught up, and it's all good.
Perfect.
So I think we have to do another talk later on, where I can make it better so my sound is okay, and we don't have to kind of circle back to the same problems because people didn't hear what I was asking.
I am, yes, for sure. I'm still eternally grateful, Fabio, because you helped me with my microphone issues. That just, I didn't know what to do. Like, there's some streamers that are so good at all the streaming stuff, and I don't enjoy fiddling with the settings. So when you came to my rescue, that was so good. So I am eternally grateful. So whatever you need, obviously.
It's like I told you before, it was mostly me getting stuck and trying to get it working. And now, hopefully, it's the cable. The Blue Yeti is on, but it's not picking up. So hopefully, there's just an issue with the cable, and it'll be easy to fix. But we'll see.
Okay.
Thank you so much, and I hope you have a good Sunday.
You too.